Welcome to the Y Connect podcast. As the heartbeat of the community, the Y is a connector where people of all ages and walks of life come together to elevate their health, wellness, education, and essential life skills. Hear the stories of impact and join the authentic conversations where together we'll discover the journeys and pathways people take to connect through the Y. Now your hosts, Zarina, Robert, and Allison.
All right. Hi, guys.
Hello again.
Hey, didn't I just see you?
just a few minutes ago.
Yes, you did. Hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but we are approaching our 1-year anniversary of the Y Connect podcast with this recording.
Already.
What?
Already.
I know.
Wow.
We need to celebrate. We do. Hooray for us.
Just remember, we took this from ground level. We took this from absolutely an idea or a thought.
That's right.
It's blossomed. It's really been a great journey.
It has. Yep, some wonderful stories. Yes,
True.
wonderful stories. And we have another wonderful story today. So the title of this episode is Empowering the Future of Boys and Young Men of Color. Statistic tells us boys and young men of color are twice as likely to grow up in poverty. They are more likely to live in neighborhoods of concentrated poverty, and they are more likely to fall into poverty as adults, regardless of background. Since 2018, the YMCA has been working to change these statistics and narrative. Through the Boys and Young Men of Color strategy, Ys are providing safe spaces for young leaders to express themselves, nurture their unique identities, and learn important life skills. Joining us to share the impact of this work is Devin, Anglin, and Jamie Glenn. Devin Anglin serves as the National Coordinator of Boys and Young Men of Color for YMCAs across the country. Devin is from Rochester, New York. For 16 years, he has committed his life to promoting cultural competence and more equitable communities. Devin is also the founder of 2 social ventures focused on community, youth development, and racial equality: Sankofa Leadership Associates and Rock Freedom Riders. Jamie Glenn, Youth Development Director of the Andrew and Walter Young Family YMCA, is from Atlanta, but also spent his early years of childhood in Inglewood, California. Earning an information systems degree from Albany State University, Jamie received the title of HBCU All-American and First Team Conference in football. Jamie spearheads the Boys and Young Men of Color strategy for the Metro Atlanta Ys. Thank you both for coming to speak with us today about your program.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. This is very exciting. Being new to this position and literally seeing Jamie at work from the point that I began working at this site with Jamie. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot just kind of sitting back and just watching him navigate, watching him sitting in meetings with him. And again, I've had the opportunity of being on a call before with Devin. So Devin, I appreciate the opportunity of finally getting a chance to put a face to a name and getting to meet you in somewhat of an informal but more formal fashion. This question is for you. Describe the Ys Boys and Young Men of Color program. I know it's more of an initiative than a program, but if you can give a brief description of it and what is the mission and key objectives of this initiative?
Yeah, so the Boys and Young Men of Color national strategy is a strategy. So it's not a program and it's not an initiative. And it's a strategy to basically pour into the full potential of boys and young men of color. And we label it as a strategy because strategies live on over time for multiple years, and they're allowed to be imperfect as we figure out what exactly we need to do to accomplish whatever that collective goal is. So Boys and Young Men of Color, in short, is a strategy that focuses in on boys 11 to 17 to remove some systematic or systemic barriers that are unique to this subset of youth, to just give them the opportunity to reach their highest and fullest potential.
I like the way you've really clarified the piece around the strategy. So let me ask you about the leadership component of this strategy. Could you elaborate on what does that look like for the youth that you're serving through this strategy, I want to say?
Yeah, so leadership is actually it's twofold and it's collective, right? So when we're talking about serving youth in general, generally there is a scaffolding of leadership to where different leaders do different things in pursuit of better education, in pursuit of college and career readiness, in pursuit of identity and character development. So when we're talking about leadership, it starts at the CEO in every association. CEOs in every association are required to be on the implementation team. And then we ask leaders like Jamie to strategically think about who across the association should be a part of this work that is informed by their position, title, and job description. And an example of that will be we ask associations to develop web pages like we see on the screen. And Jamie, if we look at his job description, does not maintain the Y branding or does not create websites. So strategically, you should want to engage the marketing department, whether it's a director or whether it's whoever, an associate, a specialist, because there are going to be specific acts in terms of communicating to the community, but also to maintain that BYMOC webpage with up-to-date information around what the Atlanta Association is doing to serve boys and young men of color. So that's a very condensed version of what leadership looks like. And to wrap up, Jamie is the me of the Atlanta Association. So he is the visionary of what it takes and what is needed for Atlanta to fully serve boys and young men of color.
Okay.
Nice.
So we had the opportunity to see a very powerful video at our national convention that we have about every 3 to 4 years called General Assembly around the Boys and Young Men of Color strategy. And we're going to share that now so we can hear some of the youth that are impacted by this program.
You're going to be a young man of color for the rest of your life. How do you navigate through spaces and places that are uncomfortable?
Boys and young men of color were twice as likely to be born in poverty. Obviously, those neighborhoods are very concentrated. And then as an adult, they're 4 times more likely, even if they were born into a middle income family, we would then fall right back down to poverty.
The YMCA has opened up a lot of opportunities for me just outside of sports and just outside of school.
We got to come up with an issue in our community. We present to a panel in DC, whether it be through community service, me being a camp counselor for younger children, made me improve me becoming a better person.
In YMCA, I feel like I can really express myself and they listen. It makes me feel good.
We ain't trying to sell young men of color. We want young men to tell their story. So we have to get away from what TV say, what other folks say, what other races are saying about young men of color.
The simplicity of all this is identity development, skills, practice.
My name is Maurice Watkins, and I attend the YMCA of Southeast Raleigh. The principles and goals of Boys and Young Men of Color is allowing boys, specifically African-American boys, to get information from people that look like us, and not just information like knowledge from school and stuff like that, which is also good, but like information of life lessons.
And so what we want young leaders to understand is when you nurture the young person into the places that they need to be, you got to get him to a place where he's thinking about his aspirational life goal. That also gets him out of trauma. It gets him out of causing tension.
The biggest thing was just setting the tone for the young men, especially the Black boys as well in this area, to have a safe space to come to, somewhere where they can hone in on their skills, develop with a mentor, and trailblaze for themselves.
We try to figure out a way to bring leadership and character development that are lifting up those boys and young men of color and helping to guide them, as they become growing adults that are able to take care of their families.
And if we create a relationship between data, the practitioner, the system, the family, the young man. It's really everybody working together to get him to decide what he wants to do.
The question becomes, how do we become more intentional around understanding a complete population of youth? And then how do we make sure that we're customizing our services to support those youth?
We started looking at what kinds of programs do we do across the Y where access may not be equal.
A lot of the stuff that we're doing for these students are things that they should already have. At the end of the day, this Boys and Young Men of Color initiative and strategy is trying to equal the playing fields and understand that our boys and young men of color are severely disadvantaged. How can we now help them on their pathway to success?
We do things such as fitness, financial literacy. I bring in mentors to speak about some components. I bring in authors who give them their own book.
We're able to partner with a lot of youth-serving organizations, the city and the county.
I would say the Obama Foundation is the lead partnership with My Brother's Keeper. They're keeping boys in school. They're addressing mental health and trauma issues.
We thought it was a great program for him to learn more leadership skills, also to fellowship with other young men and other strong men in the community.
Everybody can interact with each other in a way that's like you won't be excluded. You won't be left out. That's what makes it so cool. That's what makes me want to stay there.
The end goal is to get to 100 cities, 10,000 boys by 2025. That's how you stem the tide and bring communities back, is by going upstream and then realizing downstream what you end up with is a strong foundation.
Wow, what a powerful video. I think this is so awesome for, giving young men the opportunity to develop identity, leadership skills. We can go on and on. Jamie, building a sense of community and belonging is essential. How does Boys and Young Men of Color create a supportive and inclusive environment for these young men?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that Boys and Young Men of Color does from, the start of everything is just giving them the space to be themselves. As you can see in the Black community, especially with our boys, they join gangs because they want to feel a sense of brotherhood. They join sports because they want to have the spotlight. They want to make music so they can express themselves and things of that nature. But what Boys and Young Men of Color does so well is that, one, it exposes them to different levels of expressing themselves, as well as, as soon as they, join the space, they have a sense of brotherhood already from the jump. Because, everyone that they meet within, the strategy and within the programs that have the strategy instilled within them, they find, other brothers and, other boys that have the same like mindset. And the exposure piece is very, very huge. That will really elevate and prolong the development of these boys. Because, being in their community, they see the same thing every day. They kind of go through the same cycle, the same heartbreak, from losing their friends to gang violence and things of that nature. So just having Boys and Young Men of Color there to provide that positive space for them to grow and be themselves and really nurture the things that they, they never thought that they could do, or some things that they find out, like become like a weatherman, things of that nature. That provides a huge platform of belonging for the gentleman.
Thank you.
I think
excellent information.
What I noticed too from the video and what you're saying, Jamie, that partnership is such a big component of this, really leaning into the community and through partnerships and bringing in a variety of different opportunities and experiences.
Yes.
It's inspiring, truly inspiring.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Devin, I'm going to bring it back to you. Addressing the racial disparities and systemic issues is a significant part of this work. How does your program contribute to the broader conversation of racial equality and justice?
So the strategy is unique in its sense of it's not a typical grant program. It's not something that you can just write a grant report on and then it's over, it's done. I and Mike Duvall, who we seen on the video, is very critical in holding everyone accountable for the things that they say they're doing as it pertains to boys and young men of color and supporting them. So when addressing equity, when we're talking about racial equity as a whole, we are addressing the system and how the system is serving boys and young men of color. So it's not just about Jamie and what Jamie is doing in his program, because we know that Jamie can do it because he used to be a boy of color. Now he's a man of color, right? It's how is the system reinforcing the resources that Jamie needs to be as effective as that video makes you feel in terms of our programmatic outcomes and developing something like character, developing something like identity. So the strategy is made to go all the way up into the executive suite, right? And then strategically, BYMOC should be in every association strategic plan moving forward. So this is not only something that is happening for the duration of this grant period, which we plan on doing this for a long time, but it's also embedded in the strategic focus of associations across the country, so much so that during annual campaign time and just very common conversations with funders or philanthropists, they are making sure that boys and supporting boys are on the forefront, because this is not a Y focus. This is a federal focus. The federal government focuses on boys and young men of color just as much as MBK, just as much as the YMCA. And the unique advantage that the YMCA has is we are on the ground every day in 10,000 communities, right? Wow. Broadly, but we're looking to affect 100 communities, 100 cities, and 10,000 boys as it pertains to boys and young men of color.
Wow. And your deadline to do that is 2025 to reach the 100 cities and the 10,000 boys, correct? Okay.
Yep.
Love to hear from both you and Jamie, perhaps a success story or two. We heard from some of the youth in the video. We heard about Maurice and his story, but would love to hear additional success stories or examples of the impact that this strategy has had.
Yes, I'll go ahead and jump in on this. Go ahead. Okay, cool.
Nope. I was going to say, I'll let Jamie go.
Yes, sir. So, last year, I was working with a school called Thorough High School. And, within that school, there's a lot of behavioral challenges. The boys definitely struggle expressing how they feel as far as their anger goes. So there are a lot of fights, a lot of social anxiety as well. And I came around this one kid who was in the 9th grade class. His name was Chris. And he was having a very, very, very hard time navigating life. He was having a hard time understanding how to feel. He said that he wasn't feeling too confident about himself. He wanted to get into like more martial arts and stuff like that to have that discipline in how to express his anger and things of that nature. And one big success story that I had with him is that, we had to sit down. And I believe we sat down, just me, him, and another counselor for, I think, about 2 hours. Wow. And I literally stepped out of the classroom, because one thing about the strategy is that although we do have a program setting, nothing is firm. And when you have an opportunity to invest into someone, you have to take it, because you never know, when they're on their last straw or things of that nature. So when I sat down with him, he said, he's like, Mr. J or Coach J, I need a plan, man. I'm going through some things right now. I asked my parents to help me out, but they just don't, see my vision. And then, when you're in the classroom, give me all of these messages, and especially how we leave the classroom with the word of the day. I give them like a word to digest as they move forward, because I probably saw them like once or twice a week. And he said that, those words really like kind of propelled him to want to invest more into himself and to really better off himself in the future. And we just sat down and we just made a plan. We made a plan from the spiritual side, mental side, physical side, and just things that you can do at school. And then, really making that list of people who can support you and have that backbone for you while you go along this journey. And when I say he was on the verge of tears, he didn't cry, but I just saw the emotion in his face, like someone actually took the time
to hear me out, help me develop a plan for myself that worked for me. They didn't say it couldn't work. They didn't say it's not good enough. They didn't say no from the jump. It was just something that worked for him. And that's the biggest thing that these boys need, is just someone to listen to what they have to say, not judge it, not try to guide it, not try to put their own stamp on it. Just really have them understand that, they have their voice and they have this platform and they have the possibility to do what they want to do. So that's one of many very great stories that I have.
Right.
That's a good one. How about you, Devin?
Yeah, so being at the national level, I get to really engage multiple cities and some of their best practices is what we call them. And first I'll go low and I'll go me when I was a practitioner, and then I'll go high level. So in my program, I had one of my boys, met him during the pandemic when we were doing virtual learning support. And to set the stage, he went from fifth grade in terms of physically being in the school. He went from fifth grade being physically in the school to being physically in the school in seventh grade. So he went from an elementary building to a high school building. And he didn't have that transitional year to say like, hey, you are in a very controlled space right now. Once you go into the high school building, it's going to be completely different. So you can't act the way that you're acting now in the high school building, because there will be, sentries, and there will be so many different points of contact where you got upperclassmen and you got, you got the same level, and you got middleclassmen, and then you got sentries and the different teachers. So you have to learn how to navigate those spaces. So I am a very realistic leader as it pertains to boys and youth in general. So I never tell you that you can't do something. I ask you how you plan to get there. And so we engage in a bunch of just candid conversations around like, well, how are you going to get to this place? I know you want to go to the NBA. I know you want to go to the NFL, but what is the path there? I know you know the path there, but I want you to say it, because it becomes that much more real. And as it pertains to, you have to be in school in order to get to that place, because there is a 1 year requirement for basketball to get drafted to the NBA, and there's a 2 year requirement for the NFL to get drafted into the NFL, right? So the only way that you get to college is you complete high school. So my last year in Rochester, this boy was coming into program bragging about getting suspended and fighting, and the program know how I am. So obviously I have a conversation around like, yeah, we don't promote that here. But what I learned about him in the 2 prior years is he's a very loud person. He has a loud voice. He always uses an outside voice, and that alone will get him in trouble in the traditional school setting. So what I started to do was I started to ask him, did he yell at a teacher today? Because that action alone will get him kicked out of class. And if you're not in class, then that means that you are more prone to getting suspended, because now you're in the hallway. You're in the hallway. Now you got to find something to do. You run into the wrong person. Now you got ISS or you got OSS, because they're tired of seeing you. Why do I know this? Because I was in the school building working, and I seen this, and I stopped a lot of that systems behavior, because we have to, be able to take up space with youth, not just give space to youth. So I asked him that consistently, and it got to the point, because I am a very this is the expectation, and this is the expectation, and whether you want to answer it or not, we're going to engage in this, because that's how I develop you. And it got to the point where he was running up my stairs to my program saying that he didn't yell at a teacher today. He didn't yell at an adult. Wow. Now, I'm not asking him, did he turn in his schoolwork? I'm not asking him, did he do his schoolwork? I'm not even asking him, did he do his classwork? I'm asking about the behavior that ultimately leads to the suspension, the behavior that leads to the fight, the behavior that leads to just that negative connotation of his personality, that behavior that ultimately goes on a behavior improvement plan. So when I did that, he started to self-reflect before he even got into my doors. And he was excited to tell me that he didn't yell at an adult. Fast forward to me taking this position, he's sending me his report cards, he's getting A's and B's when he was getting straight F's when he was in my program. So one of our key metrics is education or academic success. And that scares a lot of people because we are not in school buildings. But there are so many different ways to which we can affect academic success by just keying in on the individual and what they need to focus on that will keep them in the classroom. Because the first step is keeping them in the classroom. Then the next step is getting them to understand that they are lifelong learners, and anything that they want to do moving forward as they go into adulthood takes them to read, takes them to write, takes them to understand that they have to go and embark on a journey that will force them to learn something new, whether it's learning how to craft the email, learning how to put things on your schedule, learning how to communicate to people who are very, I don't know, they don't want you around, but you still have to engage with them because that's your supervisor. Just little things, life skills like that. And that's where the character development comes in. That's where the career and college readiness comes in, because even when you go to college, you have to engage with personalities that might not want to engage with you. One of the biggest things that my dad taught me was, even if you don't like your teacher, you have to still have a very workable relationship with them, because if you need that 1 point, and you have good rapport with your teacher, they're more likely to find like, oh, he missed a positive sign and plus minus, but I see the direction that they're going, so I'm gonna give that extra point, and then now you pass the test. Versus if you're always being very resistant to listening to teachers, they're less likely to say like, oh yeah, I did have some good interactions with that student, so I'm going to find that point. And that's where my personal approach to developing my youth comes into. And then just some ideas of associations that's doing it really well. North Carolina, the Charlotte Association has changed their policy in terms of suspensions. So in the program, a suspension request or referral has to go to the risk management and the VP of youth development before they can actually suspend youth, because they seen that particular problem was very high level in terms of, just practitioners suspending youth for any which reason. Then you have San Francisco, who has a push-in program to where they increase attendance for boys of color from 60 to 90% in 4 months of them just taking space in the school building. And you have Rome, Georgia, which is a smaller association, but bringing this work in a very red county, so much so that some board members have left because they are committed to serving boys and young men of color. So those are some 3 cities from kind of different communities that are doing the job and the success stories, because we shouldn't tolerate board members who don't believe for all when we are a for our organization. So yeah, I think those are some high level and practical examples of some success stories.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And it really gets back to what you were saying, Jamie, about really sitting down and meeting our youth where they are and developing a plan that supports them. And then it bounces back to what you were saying, Devin, around scaffolding. It really starts and continues with the scaffolding.
Absolutely. Yep. So
if I can just chime in very quickly, I just have one quick question for either Devin or Jamie. Is there a wraparound component for young men of color who may need a little bit more assistance, may need a little bit more support, due to behavioral concerns or behavior problems that they may have in school?
Yeah, so I know that one great program that is hosted here every Mondays, and then in DeKalb County, and I believe it's in Decatur. I forget the high school, but there's 2 opportunities for young men to really get that fatherhood and that enrichment just from strictly males. It's called the Black Men's Lab, and they have a different focus every single week on whether that's entrepreneurship, how to become an author, how to go ahead and become a corporate manager, how to become a doctor, just anything that you would need or any type of guidance. They even talk about suicide and mental health as well. They really just hit on everything that really targets the boys and what their next steps need to be for themselves, or how to get to that next step. So that is a great resource. However, we do have a gap within the schools. I know, from working within the schools personally, there is a huge gap of keeping the kids in the school, keeping the kids engaged, keeping the kids in a great space while they're getting their education. So the Black Men's Lab is definitely a great resource that is hosted here at Young YMCA. However, there are gaps that needs to be filled within the schools.
And I would say I would add on to that we are the wraparound care. So much so that we tend to so broadly we tend to use statistics and poverty and things of that nature to identify how we help boys, but a lot of the times we don't acknowledge that our branches are open until 10 p.m. 9 p.m. Right. So the question is, how do we create space for boys to take up space with us? And we have to be intentional with that, because behaviors are not behaviors because they're behaviors. Behaviors are behaviors because it's a reaction to what they want to do, but they can't get it. So I don't see behaviors in my program because I'm giving my boys and my youth in general what they need to take up space with me. And I'm not going to put things in front of them because I think that they want this, or I'm not putting things in front of them because this is what I have, or I'm just trying to check off a box. I'm asking them, hey, what do you want to do? Before I left Rochester, we was about to do a whole cooking show because I cook for them and they like cooking. So yeah, let's do a cooking show. And we was going to split it to where half the group is doing the production side behind the cameras and the other half is going to be cooking, and we're going to produce this together. There's no behaviors in that because they want to do that. And if we, I don't want to go too far off, but if we talk about like the Kia Boys, right? I ask people all the time, well, how do you think we fix that? And a lot of times, I don't know, they just don't have, they're just deviant, or, they're just bad kids or whatever. I was like, no. I said, they're showing us that they're interested in like mechanics. They're interested in cars. They're interested in manipulating electronics, or they can be an electrician. So why don't we provide them with the resource to go and learn how to do these things? So there are trades. So now the behavior doesn't exist anymore because they can go to a car shop or whatever, make a little bit of money possibly, and then learn how to really do these things and turn that into some type of economic gain in their eyes. So we are the wraparound care, and we have the ability to do so. We just have to stop saying that we don't have enough resources to do it, because Jamie just named a resource that has nothing to do with the Y that he can send his boys to. So the vehicle that is the Y is that wraparound support. And then we just have to make sure that we're delegating to organizations that do what we don't do.
Right. Yeah, love it. Makes perfect sense. Now, what about our parents? What advice do you have for parents, guardians, or young men themselves who may be interested in getting involved or supporting the program?
Yeah, so it's for Devin. My bad.
Yep. I'm sorry.
It can be for both of you, but sure.
It can be for both of you.
Yeah, I think for parents and boys, vocalize what you need and what you want, and don't take no for an answer, because there's tons of money out there in support of what the things that you need. It's just through the lens of somebody who's saying, yeah, because you live in the poorest zip code in the city, this is what you need. Don't allow that to be a narrative, and go and say like, hey, Jamie, I want a podcast program, or hey, Jamie, I want a mobile sports program, or a gaming program. It's really comes down to the advocacy of what it is that you need and what it is that you want, and then allow for the system to provide those resources in some way, shape, or form, or connect you to those resources. But the first thing that you have to do is you have to show up, and you have to show up unapologetically. So I think that is the best high level. answer I can give you, and then Jamie can go with the low level and just that direct parent engagement.
Yeah, definitely, and I definitely want to tag along what Devin just said, which is very powerful. Powerful. You have to engage with your children. We have to understand that information is at their fingertips nowadays. Whatever they want to find out, they will find out. The telephone and the iPhone, the Android, it's a very, very powerful device that we got very comfortable with. We don't understand the power that's really held and what they can really see. And the next thing I would say is you have to have your kids engaged into something. However, don't live through your kids, by having them engaged. Have them tell you what they want to do. And if they don't like it, that's okay. But the biggest thing about it is that you have the kids understand that they have their own voice and they're being exposed to different things. And something is going to catch some traction within that. So the biggest thing is definitely showing up, being attentive with your children, and then just being open to what they want to do, because not every child is the same. Of course, some love to play basketball, or the majority love to play basketball. We have, a lot of artists coming out, but I met this one kid last week and I was astonished. He builds his own computers at age 12.
Oh, wow.
And I was talking to the mom, and mom was like, man, whatever he wants to do, man, we just dive into it. I don't care what it is. I just want to engage with him. He's a very bright young man, and I understand that. And this kid is he's building computers at age 12 years old.
Wow.
That is powerful. When I heard that, I have chills now saying it. But that just goes to show, as long as you buy in with your children and you support their visions and what they want to do, the sky is the limit. It doesn't matter your age. All you need is just the support and the guidance, and someone on your team.
Wow. 12 years old. Man.
Yes, that's amazing.
That's fantastic. I have one more question before we ask you our traditional last question. And this wasn't planned, but I would love to hear from both of you. What do you personally, what has this been like for you leading this strategy?
Oh, I'll go first. So, personally, when I first was presented this position, the strategy definitely came along with it, and it was a learning process the first year. The first year, I'm just being honest, I did not know what I was doing. I was just diving into things, and I really I came from a position where my heart was first. I definitely came in where it was like, I'm just trying to help. I'm trying to figure some things out. I came into this work when I was 23 years old. So I honestly fit within the strategy myself, as well as, being that mentor, being that person to guide the boys that I was working with. So I started from a standpoint where I did not know what I was doing. I was just doing what was on my heart and what I felt like would help the boys, as well as listening to them and what they needed. And going into year two and now year three, year two, we definitely caught some traction, because I realized that, while they're at school, they're kind of checking out. It's like more of a hangout. It's more, they're just trying to get through it. And these are very key years of their life. And year three, I kind of understand how to navigate. I understand, how to work with the boys and really have them push forward the program, because I initially built the program about what I thought, but what I understood was that it was backwards. You have to ask those questions, just like Devin said. What would you like to do? Where do you want to be in life? How are you feeling today? And then build your program around them. And once you build that program around them, just like what Devin said, there are no behaviors. Everything is unity. Everything is centered, and it's just a great feeling to be in a positive place where brothers are working together.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's everything. I think for me, it is very rewarding. I mean, I think I love the work. This is passion work for me. So I'm doing this whether I'm working for the Y or I'm outside of the Y. But it's also frustrating, because there's so many people that look like me, that don't look like me, that say that they can't do the work, or that they don't have the resources to do the work.
Right.
And then when I just ask certain questions, or very direct questions, I show them that, well, you can do the work and you already do the work. You're just choosing not to do the work. A lot of our white practitioners will come in and say, well, I'm an ally, so I can't do this work, or I'm white and I'm a woman, so I can't do this work. So then I just ask them a simple question: when you do youth development training, do they have a section youth development for youth of color, youth development for white youth? And they say no. I say, exactly. I don't walk into a room, no matter what the color is, and say I can't do it. Matter of fact, I love the challenge because I know that the culture is different. So that would challenge me to address behaviors differently. And I learned this because during the pandemic, when we were doing the emergency childcare, I was doing primarily doing my hip hop education programming in suburban areas in Rochester. So the behaviors look different, how they engage their youth look different. But guess what? I go in with the same mindset as if I'm in the city, and it works, right? So for me, it can be frustrating at times because the system pushes back so much. But I love to shake trees and I love to ask questions. And at the end of the day, the system reacts to what works, and I know it works. And the reason why I know it works is because, one, I went through a program that was led by men of color, right? That I knew, regardless of how the day end, if it was a snowstorm and all of extracurricular activities got canceled in the district, I knew I was going to program, right? And it wasn't like I was going to program to play basketball. I went to program to plan senior appreciation days and do my homework and answer essential questions and do financial literacy and do all these uncool things because it was the support of the space that I'm going into. And it was just the opportunity to be and develop myself. So I tell people all the time, I don't speak from ideation. I speak from experience and practice. My programs have been successful. My programs has always been successful. And I'm gonna always challenge the system to identify how we approach programs in a very innovative way. And the reason why I'm a hip hop educator is because hip hop has transcended across the world as it pertains to connecting to everybody. Everybody listens to hip hop in some way, shape, or form, and hip hop listens to everybody in some way, shape, or form. So being that it's not about the action, it's about the culture around being 100% acceptant of everybody from all walks of life. Because at the end of the day, we all talk, we all walk, we all dress, and we all have common similarities as to the type of shows we watch, the type of music we listen to, the way that we think, and the way that we ultimately have fun, whether it's at Dave and Buster's or picking up a golf club and playing for fun and laughing at how we never can hit the ball. So for me, I love what I do. Like I said, it's passion work. It's not a job. And I'm going to do this regardless of where I am and regardless of the title or the organization that's next to my name.
It's evident.
That's great.
Well stated, gentlemen. Well stated.
Last question that we ask everybody that joins us for Y Connect. And that is for you to share with us, how did you first get connected in your life to the YMCA? We'd like to hear everyone's kind of origination story. And I'll let
Jamie go.
Okay.
Man, this takes me so back, and it's gonna be a little funny. So, I actually joined the Y when I was, I believe, 4 years old in Inglewood, California, and my first team was the LA Sparks. And I know that was the WNBA team, but how we had it in LA was the LA Sparks and the LA Lakers. So I was on the Sparks, but man, I just remember getting dressed for my first game. I had an all white headband. I had some crisp Air Force Ones. I had my 2 wristbands, man. I was just ready to ball out. And one thing that I learned in that building when I was growing up is just a sense of teamwork. I was one of the tallest, of course. Just being able to play basketball and not really see a gender, not seeing the color, just playing as a team and, winning and, just having fun. And then, once we finish, we got to have some like ham sandwiches, Doritos, and we got to go jump in the pool. That's real. That's really where it all started. Then, just going into summer camp and, having some great counselors. One thing that I was always afraid of was, deep water and pools and things of that nature. And, with them teaching me how to swim, that really kind of, like, of course, I still have a small thing with, deep water, but, just having them being there for me and teaching me how to get over a fear, that's huge. And that translates to other things, especially as you grow up as an adult. So, that's kind of where I got introduced with the YMCA.
Nice.
Thank you.
So I'd ask Jamie to go first because I don't have a story, this like immaculate story of how I got introduced to the YMCA, and which is why the passion of me being national coordinator for Boys and Men of Color is so it burns deeply, because the YMCA has always been a gem to me. So I probably think that I was a member of the family account or membership for maybe a month before my mom canceled it because it was too expensive. And from that point on, I never really went back to the Y unless I was sneaking into it to play basketball. And the earliest of that was probably when I was maybe 12, 11, roughly. So for me, the Y has always been a gym, and it's never been a youth space. I never went to a Y camp. I've never went to one of the camps that's in the woods with all the trees and the paddle boats and all that stuff. So I never really had an authentic youth Y experience, which is why I push so hard for boys now that's young, 11 to 17, can experience the Y and the multitude of resources that they have and life lessons that they can push forward, because I wasn't privy to that just because of the makeup of the Rochester YMCA Association at the time that I was growing up. But yeah, the Y has always been there. And even with this job, with me working for the Y, I'm in my third year with the organization as a whole. It was, I would say a fluke, because I was putting in applications and it just so happened that I got an email from the YMCA saying, "Hey, we want to interview you." And I was like, I applied for the YMCA. And 3 years later, I'm here. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm here though, and I'm working, and I'm still going strong.
Yeah.
Oh, we could do a whole nother episode about that.
Could.
And I want to go deeper on another episode about your work with youth around hip hop. We could have really.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So we're going to have you back. We'll have both of you back.
Yep. Please do. Yeah, you guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing about the program. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Y Podcast. To continue the conversation or to find your closest Y, please connect with us at ymcaatlanta.org and sign up for our newsletter, Healthy Together.